Good morning. Just got the kids off to school and I started reading this Time article called Long COVID Doesn't Always Look Like You Think It Does. And just in the first paragraph were a bunch of COVID symptoms, long COVID symptoms that I also went through and was like, oh my God, I didn't even think that some of these were related to long COVID, but a bunch of them I did know. And yeah, it makes sense. So just in this first paragraph, I highlighted the ones that I went through, and this is not an exhaustive list. I face more than this, but in spring of 2023, after her third case of COVID, Jennifer Robertson started to feel strange. Her heart raced all day long. She could barely sleep at night. She had dizzy spells. She felt pins and needles in her arms. She says a buzzing feeling in her foot and pain in her legs and lymph nodes. She broke out in a rash. She smelled phantom cigarette smoke even when none was in the air. I had all those ones that I highlighted and then some. My first official confirmation of COVID was really, really early on in February 2020. And I still remember distinctly going in and out of the doctors just over and over and over that whole first year and a half before they really even knew that long COVID was a thing, and just having one weird thing after another that the doctors were just like, just happens, big happenstance that all this stuff happened to you at once. I mean, the heart racing thing was the scariest one, and unfortunately I do still have it sometimes, although not as often and not quite as fast as it has before. I remember one time early into my long COVID journey, I thought I was better, and my husband and I went to go see Frozen 2, which had just come into theaters. And during the movie, I actually left and went to the hallway because I kept having spit build up, and I was like spitting, not noisily, but spitting into a napkin constantly. I went through like several napkins. And again, this was like very, very, very early when they were still like, oh, people don't even, COVID's only in China, blah, blah, blah. And then that evening, I actually had a spike in my heart rate so fast that I like kind of panicked, and I like called 911 to ask for advice, because going to the hospital is always, thousands of dollars even with insurance. And I just really felt like, oh, it's not that, I don't want to pay thousands of dollars just to have, just for my heart feeling like it's going to burst out of my chest. And the 911 operator was like, no, we can't give you advice over the phone. Also, we have a car, we have a paramedics en route to you. And I was like, no, I don't want paramedics, because I'm just thinking like price tag. So they sent them, and it was a fire truck, I remember, and the paramedics got out and they like took my blood oxygen and stuff like that. And of course by then my heart rate was already slowing down. And I remember the snideness of one of the paramedics who was like, "Ha ha ha, do you have a history of panic attacks? Ha ha ha." Like, he was so fucking rude. And I was like, no, at that point I've had like one or two panic attacks in my life, and they always had a trigger. This had no trigger. This just, out of nowhere, my heart started extremely racing. There was another time, maybe a year or two after that, that I had been playing Ark, and I even remember exactly where I was in the map, because for some reason certain things will just trigger a memory. You'll keep every detail of that memory. And I was just sitting there playing, and my heart just started beating really, really fast. And I had a heart rate monitor thing because my mom was dying of cancer and we would use it on her or whatever. And so I took it, and my heart rate was at 140 beats per minute, which is like, I should have been like unconscious. And it stayed that way for about 2 hours straight. And the next day, I made an appointment for urgent care, and I went and I talked to the doctor. And once again, they were like, but I remember it was so scary. And, here we are in 2024, and the last confirmed case that we had was in August last year. We finally went to go visit Seattle for the first time since we moved here. When we got home, my sister-in-law, who had visited with us, tested positive, and then like 2 days later we tested positive. And it was pretty mild. It was just sort of, at that point, like this was my third or fourth infection, and we were fully up on every shot as soon as it becomes available. As soon as it becomes available, and I can find a place where it's available, which is especially hard for the kids because a lot of the places don't carry the right dosage for the kids to get theirs. My 5 and 7 year old. Anyway, um, and even before that, but especially since that last infection, my 7 year old will suddenly get a pounding heart. And I took him to the doctor like a month ago, and they did an EKG and everything, and they said, well, there's nothing that's showing wrong. So, if he is like unable to get conscious, or he's turning blue or whatever, take him to the ER. Otherwise, talk to the doctor again, and we can look into some kind of pills or whatever. But it's sporadic or whatever. And my 7 year old, like, when his heart is beating it really fast, he'll come in and he'll show me. He'll be like, "Mom, my heart's beating really fast," and I'll touch his chest, and I can just feel it going boom, 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 which is very similar to what I still go through occasionally. And sometimes they'll say something sweet like, "My heart's beating really hard because it really likes to exercise." And I'm just like, "Oh, sweetheart, like, yeah, I wish it was that, I wish it was that positive." But it's scary, it's scary. But yeah, I just saw this article, and at the time, at the first year or two that I first had COVID, I was actually pretty good about keeping a journal. And I don't even know where the journal is, but every time I would have like a weird health thing, I would write it down. And I still, one of these days, want to write it all down as a catalog for other people to see, because literally it was just like one thing after another. And the foot thing, I also had that, the buzzing foot thing, and I didn't even realize it was related to COVID until I read this article. But I remember over Memorial Day weekend, and I don't remember what year it is. I think it was 2021, after my mom died, because she died February 2021. We went to a beach over Memorial Day weekend that my husband's coworker had recommended, and I just remember sitting on the log and not even standing on I think it was my left foot, because it was buzzing. Like, that's how I described it to the doctor later. It was buzzing. And it was like, it would be like, ooh, ooh. It almost felt like I was like touching an electric wire or whatever. And I just remember, like, I didn't go in the water. I just sat there because my foot was buzzing so much. And I went to the doctor, and she was like, "I don't know, I've never heard of this before." It's just, and again, it like went away slowly on its own after a few months. But it's wild to me, absolutely wild to me, that there are still so many ignoramuses that are like, "Oh, it's just a cold. There's nothing, it's no big deal, blah, blah, blah." As, millions and millions of people have died. We still have hundreds of people dying of COVID every year. And COVID's not just this one thing, this one-off thing. Like, it's constantly evolving because of dumbasses not getting the shot and not wearing masks and spreading it like crazy. And just the ignorance, like, oh my God. I love how fucking science deniers are like, "My body, my choice." It's like, your pregnancy is not going to jump out of your body and infect someone else. You can't, you being forced to be pregnant is not going to change how pregnancy works so that more and more people are getting pregnant, more and more people are dying of being pregnant, which, I mean, you can very easily die while pregnant, or childbirth or whatever. So that's, oh, just have the baby and pop it out. Yeah, it's not that easy. But anyway, I don't know. It's just depressing that the ignoramuses have won, as far as everyone giving up, as far as, COVID's endemic now, and it's extremely, it just keeps changing. And it's like, "Oh, well, they said when we got the shot that, we would never have to worry about it again." And that's not exactly what the CDC said. The CDC did fuck up, for sure. They downplayed COVID way more than they should have. And I mean, obviously the Trump administration did a catastrophic job. I'm sure if Biden, or, well, Hillary had been in office, she would have done a much better job, but there still would have been problems, but not nearly as bad as, what Trump did with the bleach thing and everything. But I don't know. It's just crazy to me. Have you had COVID? Do you have long COVID? What does your long COVID look like? Hopefully you can post it without TikTok taking your comments down, but I don't know. All these platforms seem to be a lot more interested in protecting, Nazis and science deniers rather than people who are sharing their actual lived experiences. So we'll see if this video even stays up.